Welcome, Swagatham, Vanakkam. The Sabarimala temple gold theft, a biblical perspective. Does it sound far-fetched to you that there can be a biblical perspective on this infamous theft at the Ayyappa temple? Well, let's see. Am I shocked or surprised at the Sabarimala holy theft? No, not at all. Let me explain why. The relevant clue can be found in the cleansing of the temple of Jerusalem by Jesus of Nazareth. He experienced extreme indignation, righteous anger, and a market of extortion thriving in the premises of the Jerusalem temple. Let us ask, is there a parallel between the temple in Jerusalem and the temple of Ayyappa at Sabarimala, separated as they are, both in time and space by a huge margin? The temple cleansing episode in the Gospel is a clear warning that religion could degenerate into a den of thieves. How does that happen? To Jesus, a place of worship, if it is indeed God who is worshipped there, must be a house of prayer for all nations. That reminds us of the vision given to prophet Ezekiel in the Old Testament. In that vision, a river, which signifies true religion or spirituality, if you like, a river originates from the threshold of the temple and flows out towards the surrounding areas, kindling life wherever it went. Religion, true religion, begins like that outward flow. In the Garden of Eden, the first book of the Bible called Genesis, the Garden of Eden, God comes in search of Adam and Eve. It's not human beings seeking for God. It is God coming in search of human beings. It is God who reaches out because it is in God's nature to do so. Over a period of time, however, God is made unnatural. This is extremely important to understand, for it is rarely understood. God is made to sit in a place and people are forced to go there. It was or it is in the nature of God to seek and restore people, but that nature is denatured, is made unnatural. And now God is made to sit in a place designated by the priestly class, and people are forced to go there. Two forms of force are involved in organized religion. First of all, God is forced to sit and sit only in this place. Secondly, because God is forced to sit in a place and be confined to that place, the people are forced to go there, to double force. This is the very essence of idol worship. Idol worship is not merely the worship of some idols. True or essential idol worship is worship that reduces God to idols. When God is reduced to an idol, religion becomes a domain of superstition, deception, and stupidity. The book of Exodus gives us a great insight into how this happens. Moses leads the Israelites out of their slavery in Egypt. In the course of their journey to the promised land, Moses tarries for a few days on top of Mount Sinai, communing with God. The people panic. They demand of Aaron to make a god for them. He asks for their gold. And with the gold that the people provide, Aaron fashions a golden calf to be acknowledged and worshipped as their god. This is the danger signal in all religions. Gold for God and God out of gold. I'm going to repeat that because it is so very important for my argument. Gold for God, you have to give your gold in order that God may be created. So, gold for God and then God as gold. This is the essence of organized religion. Gold and God become interchangeable in religion. If God can be made with gold, then gold can take the place of God. Then gold becomes the medium through which people express their religious favor of it or their piety for God. Gold accumulates and God fades away. That's by and large what happens in religion, to put it as simply as I possibly can. In the book of Exodus, which is the second book in the Bible, we have two stages in the evolution of human religiosity. In the first stage, there is God and no gold. In the second stage, there is God as gold, which is the God that Aaron makes for the Jews, the golden calf. The moment the second stage begins, in which God is fashioned out of gold and therefore gold becomes their God, falsehood mushrooms in religiosity. The people hail Aaron's golden calf as the God that brought them out of Egypt. It is not only a lie, it is also a deliberate and willful lie. Because the very people who utter it know there is a lie invented by them. But they repeat it, they shout it, they chant it as though that's the ultimate truth. And they do so with all the religious fervor you can imagine. There are people who believe that if you repeat stupidity with great fervor and with apparent devotion to God, it becomes truth. No, stupidity remains stupidity. And that's unfortunately the case in all religions. Superstition is the word for such falsehoods entertained under the authority of religion. Religious superstition is necessarily a manifestation of God as gold, and it is driven by the hope of getting more gold. So you invent a God out of gold and then expect that God to multiply your God. And the most acute form of that in the Christian context is what is called the prosperity gospel. The best definition of the prosperity gospel is God as gold. Now, gold is not only value, but also ornament. That I come to the second part of my argument, the ornamental value of gold, which everybody knows. The ornament quotient, or the ornament value, works in religion as the supremacy of appearance over truth. Every ornament seeks to belie the truth or change or modify the truth. God is truth, everyone agrees. Religion is, in theory, our relationship to this God who is truth. But our religiosity goes by appearance rather than truth. This is the seed of the hypocrisy that infects every religion. That's the reason why when Jesus looked at the priestly class, he associated only one characteristic with them, and that is hypocrisy, hypocrisy, hypocrisy all the way through. And that is true of all religions and not merely of Judaism or Christianity. The need for priests to appear pious makes them hypocritical, because you're not truly God-loving at heart, but you have to pretend that you are, that your whole life is dedicated to the service of God and only God is real for you, whereas your heart is set after gold, and that is what is called hypocrisy. The profitability in seeming pious attracts potential thieves to religious administration. If religion is a domain of truth, then obviously thieves will have no scope there. But if religion is made out of hypocrisy, pretenses, appearances, play acting, then it becomes a gold mine for potential thieves, particularly those in the administration of religious establishments. Thus, hypocrisy and theft complement each other in religion, especially when a religion enters a period of decay. Is there hypocrisy? Uh, if there is hypocrisy, rest assured there will be theft also. You have to be rather naive to believe that superstitious religiosity can be safe from theft. As T.S. Eliot says in his verse drama, Murder in the Cathedral, which I had the great pleasure of teaching the undergraduate students for a long time, T.S. Eliot in that drama, which is centered on the life of Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury, his martyrdom. He says that the gold that the pious people offer at the shrines will flow out of there and land up in the lap of prostitutes. You offer your gold with great piety, with great religious fervor at the various shrines. What happens to the gold that you offer there? It is then managed by some very smart people, and eventually the gold that you offer lands in the lap of prostitutes. That's not what I'm saying. T.S. Eliot, any doubt? Read Murder in the Cathedral by T.S. Eliot. It's a play that was written in 1936. In Sabarimala, the Tantri is the lord of the temple's rituals and traditions. The Devasam board lords over its gold. In Episcopal churches, bishop combines the roles of the Tantri and the board. That is to say, the bishop is in a position to combine hypocrisy and theft. Whether or not this is happening in our midst now is for all of you to decide. There is enough evidence to help you in this regard. That's all I wish to say at this point in time. In this light, we can understand better why Jesus insisted on sincerity rather than the play acting of piety. Jesus insisted on sincerity rather than displays of piety in religion. In the 6th chapter of St. Matthew's Gospel, we have a classic text on this. Jesus repeats with increasing emphasis that the craving to be seen as pious must be renounced. Do not give alms to be seen by men. Do not pray to be seen by men. Do not fast in order to be seen by men. Jesus repeats it, not to be seen by men. This craving to be seen by men is the essence of hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is the bridge between God and gold. But for the craving for gold, no one would be a hypocrite. Neither a priest nor a layman, neither a priest nor a believer will be a hypocrite, but for the craving for gold. If you have nothing to get from God, you will not be religious at all. Every person on planet Earth worships God or calls upon God only because he or she hopes to get something out of God. I make this statement with absolute confidence. That's why I'm saying that our religiosity is driven by gold rather than by God. Our relation to God, if we believe in God at all, must be sincere. Sincerity abhors public display. To project anything in public is to distort it. It is like light passing through a prism. And because of the prism, the light gets distorted or broken into 7 colors. We are familiar with the physics of it. Even the grief that people display in public at the death of a dear one gets distorted because of public consciousness. Sometimes people are forced to act a grief that they do not actually feel for fear that people might otherwise say bad things about them. So anything that comes into the public domain gets distorted. You make a report, you say something, if it changes hands 5 times, then by the time it reaches a sixth person, it's completely distorted. That's how it is. If our love for God is not spontaneous, or it is not felt sincerely from within, if it is not heartfelt, then whatever we do or express in our religious life is necessarily hypocritical. Christians are under obligation to go to churches to worship, and the moment they enter worship, they look different personalities altogether. They don't realize that their worship is offered in hypocrisy and not in the sincerity of their heart. As against the hypocrisy of publicly displayed piety, Jesus recommended the sincerity of loving one another. You don't have to spend time worshiping God. You don't have to spend time in a church or a temple or a mosque. Just love one another. Jesus says that's all that is required. Forget about religion altogether. Love one another. Nothing more is needed, but nothing less will do either. But the stupidity that we practice is that we take enormous pains to worship God formally, but we refuse to love one another. Sincere love excludes gold from our relation to God and to people. Gold prostitutes religion. I'm going to repeat that. Gold prostitutes religion. Wherever gold comes in, prostitution begins, in the metaphoric sense. It is the need to pay then and there that makes the difference between a man's relation to his wife and to a prostitute. You don't pay your wife, you have to pay a prostitute. We are actually treating God in that manner when we assume that if we pay more and more to God, God will be more and more pleased with us. Where there is love for God, there is no need for gold. Where there is no love, there must be gold and more gold. This gold as love, this gold as love is religious prostitution. This gold as love is religious prostitution. Every person is guilty of it, which is an awkward thing. Its hideous ugliness has to be hidden. The only fig leaf available to do so is an exaggerated public display of piety. That's how we want to be seen as pious in public. In the end, the Temple of Jerusalem and the Sabarimala temple are two sides of the same coin. Even as people become more and more superstitious, churches and temples prosper materially. They succumb to the superstition that they can make their gods with their gold. Now, it's important to realize that gold or money is a principle of substitution. It's an important economic principle. Every economist will tell you that this is how it is. Money or gold is a principle of substitution. That is why you can buy a chicken or a cow. The money you offer to the owner of a chicken substitutes it. That is why the money that you pay must be equal to the worth of the chicken in the estimation of its owner. So it's called equivalence in worth. The money that you offer is the same in value as the chicken that the other person gives you. That's why the principle of substitution works. So when we buy God's favor with our gold, we are substituting gold for God. That was precisely what what Judas did to Jesus in selling him. As per the gospel logic, hypocritical piety is no better than what Judas did to Jesus. There is no organized religion uninfected with the Judas principle. In hypocritical religion, God is a selling and sellable commodity. In Jerusalem, the temple was also a market. Today, religion has become an industry via the prosperity gospel. There is striking similarity between those who queue up at shrines for God's favor and those who do so in front of an Apple uh, outlet where new models of iPhones are announced. Given what we have seen so far, it makes sense that theft need not seem immoral to those who manage religious affairs. Rather, pocketing a share of God's superstitious gold seems a smart thing to do. The people buy God's favor with their gold. Why shouldn't God's managers help themselves to a share of that gold? It makes eminent sense, actually. A religious system which encourages the superstition that man's love for God can be and has to be expressed through gold has no right to be aggrieved that God's gold is stolen by his own custodians, his own keepers. What we have when religion is organized as a gold driven enterprise is the idolatry of gold as God. The consequence is predictable. Places of worship, as Jesus says, will become dens of thieves. Please go and tell this to the SIT investigating, the special investigating team, investigating the Sabarimala theft. Proclaim this also to every superstitious believer in religion who believes that God's favor can be bought with gold. The options are clear and stark. Either you have the religiosity of truth and sincerity of heart, or you have a religiosity of superstition, stupidity, and corruption, in which you think that God can be bought with your gold. To accept this superstitious religion, to practice it, is to become party to places of worship becoming, as Jesus says, in the inimitable words of Jesus, dens of thieves. And that's precisely what this massively organized gold haste or gold theft at Ayyappa temple in Sabarimala proclaims to all of us. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. Thank you.